Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. In this video, we'll be finishing up detailing the fuel line that we set up in the last video, and then I think just going around and doing some general upgrades and fixes around our map. So to finish off last episode, we added this little section to our oil refinery. I just want to come through and make a few sort of final finishing touches in this area before we move on to the fuel refinery. So let's get into that real quick. So the first thing I think we'll add is a crane somewhere along this platform here. I think maybe somewhere right about here, and if we raise it up just a little bit so that it's actually coming up above the platform, placing it right about there doesn't look too bad in my opinion. And it looks like as we place this, we have our first boat making it over here, which means hopefully soon we'll be getting fuel shipped from our fuel refinery. Alright, so then we added a few parking spots so that it has a little bit of life to it. And then lastly, I think we'll just add a few small details here to give this area a little bit of interest and detail. So I think just adding these details like so works out pretty well, and I think we'll leave this off here. I don't want to detail too much until this oil refinery is fully maxed out so that we know what its actual fully upgraded footprint looks like, but I think this is now developed enough to where we can move on to the fuel refinery. Alright, so then finally we end up down at our fuel refinery, so let's get into detailing this area. So first we'll clear out a nice area for us, get rid of all the trees and other things so we can see what we're doing. Grab our terrain tool and we'll flatten out pretty much as we can around the industry. And so I think an area like this is pretty good for what we're going to do. Alright, so we'll use this road as sort of a guide for everything we do. I think a lot of the buildings that we'll place will be on this road. So let's start this off by grabbing our paintbrush, bringing our strength all the way up, and then we'll paint this side of the road as asphalt, since this will probably be where our main building goes. Alright, and so this will be the building that we'll have here. We have sort of a nice area where we can put a front door. So we'll find our two main doors, turn off the fences and stairs since we really don't need those, and we'll line those up right in the center here, like so. On the back side here, we'll get some pretty large gates put in. Let's go 1.3 size. And we'll get that placed right about here. And I think as for this building, that's really all that we need to do. I think it looks pretty good as a storage building, just leaving it like this. So we can now focus on the buildings for the main fuel refinery. Alright, and I think this is going to be all of the assets and buildings that we place down for now. So we have these two buildings over here with some storage in the back. We have these really large storage tanks which presumably fuel this building here. And so all that's left is to paint the ground to make this all look good and put some finishing touches if we think we need it. Alright, so I think this is how we're going to leave off our fuel refinery for now. I'm not too sure how I wanted to fill this space quite yet, so we'll leave it open and probably wait until this industry levels up so we can match the style a little bit better. But I'm happy with where this is. We'll quickly smooth out and clean up the edges of our terrain, and then we can move on to other areas of the map. Alright, so looking around the map for a bit, I noticed this train station is starting to have quite a decent pileup of grain, and I think the reason for that is our rate isn't high enough. When we first set this line up, I think we just did the math wrong, but we have 3 farms supplying this train station, each at a rate of 400, which means this train line needs a rate of 1200 for it to function properly. And so I'm happy with the train that's currently running here, so I think we'll just simply add more cars onto each train. I think we'll add 4 for each. We'll replace that and see what our rate comes out to be now. So if we take a look now, our rate is at 1153. So I think maybe we'll just come through and add 1 more for each train, and then we should be good enough to leave this alone, and we'll start to see this grain start to leave this train station. And another thing that someone pointed out in the comments actually was we probably don't need as many small trains here trying to get to its max speed on such a short line down to the steel mill. We might be better off just getting 3 or 4 longer trains and just trying to move as much iron and coal as we can. So currently we're operating at a rate of 1845, which I believe should be correct. Actually, I think we're only about half as many trains as we need. I think if we come down to the steel mill, this is only operating at about half efficiency because we just simply don't have enough trains moving stuff. So this rate should actually be whatever 800 times 4 is. So I believe that's 3,200. And we're only operating at about half of that. So first of all, let's well, I guess we're not going to replace all of them, but we will replace 4. I think if we can get 4 trains operating at a rate of 3,200, we'll be in a good position. But let's go through and maybe redesign this train and see what we can get with some different engines and more cars. Alright, so here's the train we're going to try out. It's this Russian class CHS4. It's an electric engine, so it's much more powerful when it comes to moving large loads. We can see we have a capacity of 360. We'll replace these and see what our rate is, and then we'll just add cars to get us up to our number. So we're at 23, pretty much 2,400, which covers about 3/4 of what we wanted, and didn't mean to duplicate those, but we'll come in, edit this, and we'll add some more cars. So we added 6 more cars to each. That actually gets us a little too high up. Alright, so after some slight tweaks, we finally got it to settle at a rate of 3296, which is just above where we want it, so that should work out just fine. So we should see an improvement in the amount of steel coming out here, and then we should also see that reciprocated, I believe, all the way over at the machine's factory, which was probably running about half as efficient as it could be. So that might have been causing problems, but that should be fixed now. And here's just one of those trains so you can get an idea of what it looks like. I think this is a pretty decent looking train for what it is. It's nothing too powerful, too strong, but we shouldn't have any issues with that now. And one thing I just wanted to point out real quick as I was flying around the map, it seems like Downey is finally spreading out across the river this way, which is the way we want it to expand instead of coming up this hill. But I guess we're finally getting over here after quite some time, and we'll just have to do some cleanup. As you can see here, Downey's going to start conflicting with our highway network out here, so we're going to want to make sure that the city does not connect to this or build on it at all. And so that might have to be done with collision tiles. We can only really do so much by locking the streets, but we will come through here and lock pretty much all of this so the city doesn't touch it. So we should be safe in terms of the roads connecting to our highway, but we will just have to keep an eye out for buildings getting built on our highway. And coming back to Jackson and Scottsdale, and just checking in on all the changes we made, everything seems to be doing pretty well, and it seems like the city has taken the liberty to expand over this way, and we might just help it out a little bit by creating some sort of crossing somewhere in here, just so people can get around a little easier. So I think we might try to bridge over the tracks here, although this doesn't look too great. We can try to lower this down as much as possible, but it still almost doesn't look natural. So I think we'll just build this bridge and accept the fact that it probably won't look the best, as for some reason it just builds up these mounds on the ends, but it is functionally very important for it to be there. Alright, so by moving this bridge back just a little bit, we were actually able to get something that doesn't look too terrible and still functions as it should. So I'm happy with that connection. That will just help so that everyone doesn't get funneled onto this road if they want to come somewhere over here. And just to help out with some more connections, since these cities are growing, and there's nothing we can really do to help it, we can have a bridge come across here, and just trying to pick the style we want. I guess this concrete bridge isn't so bad, but we can connect that up to right about there, so that'll provide a connection to this highway. And I think that'll be it for our bridges across our rail tracks. There is an opportunity to do one here, so we might actually do that. We'll just get it high enough and then build a simple bridge just like that. But for now I think we're good. Now, one thing I did notice here in Jackson is this intersection is functioning pretty well, except for a backup starting to come from this way. And I think that might be because everyone's in the left lane to go left or straight. They're not really using the right lane to go straight, which gives us a bit of a problem, especially when it comes to filling out this road. So we have this asymmetrical road, and I think if we upgrade it like so, each one of these gets their own dedicated lane for left, straight, and right. So I think doing it this way will help to divide up the traffic so that we can fit more people on this road, and it'll work a little bit more efficiently and functionally as it continues to go on. Alright, so I want to take a look at our bus lines real quick, and it looks like our Jackson bus loop is pretty full, and we actually have some really old buses on here. So let's just come in and replace these buses. I believe these are still the twin coach buses, which don't have much capacity or top speed. And recently we unlocked these Wright streetcars, which have one of the highest capacities so far. And it's, I think, the most expensive bus, but considering the context of the line, I think it could actually be a pretty good benefit to moving people around the city. We'll also do the same in the reverse loop, and I think because we've increased the capacity and we have slightly bigger vehicles, we could afford to sell one or two of the buses on each loop. And as for everywhere else, it seems to be doing just fine, at least on Jackson's end. This street is slowly clearing out. However, over in Scottsdale, we still have a few areas where things are getting a little backed up, and I think this might be helped by having fewer intersections on this road. So we'll just come in, we will lock this road, we'll lock the entire sort of main strip coming into Scottsdale, just so the city doesn't continue to build intersections on it. But now that we're here, we'll come up and we'll go through each one and determine if we really need that intersection or not. So right here, we can probably get rid of these. We end off with a little weird corner here, but I don't think anything will be too affected by that. Right here, I think, again, we don't need these two. And we'll keep this one just because it seems maybe a little important to get in and out of this portion of the city. And then coming across the train tracks, this area needs cleaned up pretty badly, so that one doesn't need to be there. We'll actually just redo this entire area, actually, and just help the city out with this. So I think we'll add a straight road like so. We can continue to bring this one out straight and get an intersection around here. I think that's fine, but other than that, that's really all the other intersections that we'd probably want it to make. So that should solve that issue. We could even get rid of this road as well. And so I believe that's a lot of our main roads in Jackson and Scottsdale fixed. Hopefully we'll start to see this traffic start to flow out of here a little bit easier. And just looking around the city, there's not really any other areas that desperately needs attention, other than maybe just a few spots along our bus lines where cars and other things get stopped. I think one area that could be redesigned a bit more here is this area, as we have a bunch of bus lines leaving on this road, but this road is so short it only allows 2 buses to get on this segment of road at a time, which really messes with the timing of this light. So I think if we just pause, and we'll pretty much clear out all or most of the roads right about here. We'll leave this intersection because this is where we're going to connect up, and that'll be where our next connection is made. So then we can bring this road around whenever we can select it, and we'll curve it around like so, and then bring it up around here. Although we could probably keep this. This wouldn't be too terrible to have as an intersection. The only thing is we'd have to fill something in this space, which I'm not sure exactly what we would do. We could extend this road all the way to this intersection, but I really don't like the idea of a 5-way intersection on one of our busiest roads in the city. So I think we'll just continue to leave this intersection probably here, and then we will have to reconnect some of our roads. So this one can connect here, and we could turn this into a 4-way intersection, but that might get a little messy. I mean, we could just leave this as a single road, and that'll still fill out this area. So let's do that, and then we will lock these roads so the city doesn't connect and build on these, and then we will turn this into a bus lane only so that cars aren't coming through and using this for bus routes. So really what this should do is allow more buses to queue up at the light, and hopefully now that this is just a 3-way intersection, the phasing of the light will be a little bit easier now. I think there could be a few more areas along this road where we get rid of some intersections. I believe we do have, well, we should probably lock almost all of this so that the changes we make with the intersections actually stay that way. But I think looking around the rest of this main road, I'm pretty okay with the amount of intersections we have. Nothing's really getting in the way of anything else. And so lastly, to finish off the video, let's take a look at some of our line numbers quick and see what's making us the most money, what's making us the least, and fix some of those if we can. So it looks like all of our passenger trains are bringing us in tons of money, and our new grain line is actually making a ton of money as well. So that's interesting to see there. We have a bunch of trains making us a couple $1,000,000 each. But let's flip this now and see the other side of this. So our Downey to Birmingham train station is making us the least amount of money so far. We do have this boat line that just popped up, but that's our new line that we have that isn't really established yet. The boats are still moving around. So this Downey to Birmingham line, I really think, and I want it to work, but we need to figure out how we can get it to work for us. So we have the train here leaving now. We have 3 trains running this route, and I think maybe we don't need 3 trains for it. So let's sell one of them, and so that'll allow more people to queue up at the station on each end for these lines. Another thing could be Downey could be getting overloaded, and so there's not space for people to join on the Downey to Birmingham line. We have a bunch of people waiting to go from Downey to Jackson. So perhaps we could take a look at these trains and maybe replace them, since we've unlocked a few more of these bigger trains. So we have unlocked these Shinkansen E2-1000 trains. So these have significantly more power and tractive effort, as well as a little bit more capacity. So perhaps we can just replace those, and that might be able to handle the demand for us. Let's see if we can catch one of these. So yeah, here's that train that we just replaced, stopping in Downey right now. It is slightly longer than the station, but that shouldn't really be a problem, since this train has such a high loading speed. But so that should work out pretty well. And we can take a look at another line here, our construction materials line, which this one seems a little odd, as this is what's bringing construction materials from here over to the cargo hub. So I'm not really sure how to handle whatever's going on here. I think it might just simply be that this train, we don't need quite as much coming back and forth, since this is primarily supplying Downey and Mesa with construction materials. So maybe it's just a matter of scaling back this line a little bit. So we'll get rid of one of these vehicles, and that might just be good enough, since we do have another construction materials plant taking resources into the cargo hub. So we now have this one here, and I think that's just splitting the demand, which is probably what's causing us issues there. So until we connect more lines here where the demand for construction materials is a little bit higher, we probably won't see an increase on that line for quite a bit. But other than that, we don't really have any other outstanding lines losing us a ton of money. Pretty much all the other numbers there were trains that don't have a high frequency that might just take longer than a period or two to make its trip, so that's not reflected accurately in the balance. But I'm pretty happy with the ones that are making us the most money here, which largely consists of our passenger network and our larger goods trains. However, with that, I think that'll be all that we do in this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.